Hello everyone. Today we will be studying Rip Van Winkle, lesson number 3A, and it is a short story by American author Washington Irving, which was first published in 1819. It follows a Dutch-American villager in colonial America named Rip Van Winkle, who meets mysterious Dutchman, drinks a potion, and falls asleep in the Catskill Mountains. He awakes 20 years later to a very changed world, having missed the American Revolution. Inspired by a conversation on nostalgia with his brother-in-law, Irving wrote the story while temporarily living in Birmingham, England. It was published in his collection, The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon Zent. While the story is set in New York's Catskill Mountains, near where Irving later took up residence, he admitted, "When I wrote the story, I had never been on the Catskill." Now this story starts with the depiction and a question about, have you ever made a voyage to the Hudson River? The author asks you a question about Hudson River. And you know, the story is very picturesque. It is like the writer has painted a picture with words. Yes, you can literally, the depiction and the description is so accurate that it's like painting a picture with words. So see how the lines goes. There can be seen to the west of the river swelling up to a noble height and lording it over the surrounding country. Okay, so he's talking about the Catskill Mountains and the Hudson River, and see how he's painting a picture with words. At the foot of these mountains, the voyager may have seen the light smoke curling up from a village. Now he's reaching a village where our central character, the hero of the story, Rip Van Winkle, lives. Yes, and whose roofs gleam among the trees. And it is a little village of great antiquity. That's what the writer is telling, that it's a remote area and the environment there is a very tranquil and the roofs are gleaming among the trees. And he says that the village was founded by some Dutch colonists in the early times. And in the same village there lived, while the country was yet a province of Great Britain, a simple, good-natured fellow by the name of Rip Van Winkle. So the first description of Rip Van Winkle that the author gives is that he was a good-natured fellow and a very unselfish man, a kind neighbor, and an obedient husband. Yes, these are the adjectives given to Rip Van Winkle by the writer. Now, Dame Van Winkle is the name of the wife, and the writer says that, on the contrary, she was known throughout the neighborhood as a woman with a very fiery temper and a sharp tongue. So Rip Van Winkle was good-natured, unselfish, and obedient husband. Yes, and a kind neighbor, while his wife, Dame Van Winkle, was a woman with a fiery temper and sharp tongue. So these are the characteristics of the two characters. Rip was a great favorite with the villagers and especially the children. And the children would shout with joy whenever he appeared. Why did they do so? Let's find out. So Rip was very famous among the children. Why? Because he used to make their sports, assisted them while making it, make their playthings, taught them to fly kites and shoot marbles, and tell them stories of ghosts and witches. Now, which child will not like such a man? Yes. Now, there was one great error in Rip's composition, was that he was very, he had a deep dislike of all kinds of profitable labor. Means you give him a work which will not pay, he will do it with pleasure, but anything that will earn him daily wages, he would dislike. He had an aversion to all kinds of profitable labor. Now, it could not be from want of perseverance, for he would sit on a wet rock with a heavy rod and fish all day. Means he was a very laborious person when it came to idle work. Means he will sit on a wet rock and fish all day without a murmur. So it was not that he was not, it comes to great things which make you labor. He was not having aversion to work that will make him tired. Still, he will not do anything that will earn him a profit. Now, any man who will, do labor but non-profitable will not be good for his family, is it? Yes, because the family, in order to sustain, needs money, and for that you need to do work that is profitable, that will make you, get a salary. So that was the reason the wife was always nagging him. So he would carry a fowling piece on his shoulder, and for hours together he will go trudging in the woods, swamp and hills and towns to shoot a few squirrels or wild pigeons. And he would never refuse to assist a neighbor even in the roughest toil. Yes, the roughest hard work he will do while assisting a neighbor. In other words, Rip was ready to attend anybody's business but his own. Yes, so he was one of the happy mortals who would take the world easy, eat with white bread or brown, and whichever they would get with least thought or trouble, and they would love to whistle their life away in perfect contentment. But this will not suit family, right? So wife kept dining in his ears. Dining here means making loud noises because of his idleness and carelessness and the ruin he was bringing upon the family. Yes, it was a little justified according to me, because yeah, he was just wasting his time. He was a good man, but you can see, children, the irony here. He was a good man. He was not, having any trouble doing hard labor, but he was not using that hard labor to take care of his family. So there is the irony in his character. Yes, you can see the contrast here between him and his wife's nature, and in Rip's nature himself. That on one hand he was very good, but he was not good as a father and as a husband. Poor Rip was driven into despair. His only alternative to escape from labor of the farm and clamor of his wife was to take the gun in hand and stroll away in the woods, and accompanied by his dog Wolf. So he did that. He wanted to escape because his wife was continuously nagging him. So one of his long rambles, Rip had unconsciously scrambled up to the highest part of the Catskill Mountains. One day, he just trying to escape from his wife's clamor. What he did, he kept on climbing, and unconsciously, without realizing, he climbed one of the highest part of the Catskill Mountain. He was at his favorite sport of squirrel shooting. It was his favorite sport, shooting squirrels. But when he was tired, he sat down on a green knoll, and he could see miles of rich woodland, and far below him, flowing majestically, the Hudson River. Yes, and it was getting dark, and when he was about to descend back from the mountain, he heard a voice from a distance calling Rip Van Winkle. He looked around, but he could see nothing but a crow winging his solitary flight across the mountain. He just saw a crow, but he heard his name. So he thought, maybe I am, just fancying things and I'm deceived by it, and it's not real, it's just in my head. And he turned again to descend from the mountain, but he again heard the same cry in the still evening air. Look at the picturesque description, children. Very nice it is, and his name was again echoed twice. Now Wolf bristled his back and growled because he also heard it. Okay, looking fearful down into the glen. The glen is a narrow valley. Now Rip felt a vague apprehension. He was like in a doubt what to do. Suddenly he saw a strange figure climbing up the rocks with a heavy burden on his back. Rip was surprised to see any human being in this lonely and unfrequented place. This stranger was singular in appearance. Singular means unusual. He was a short old fellow with a thick bushy hair and grizzled beard, and he was dressed in antique Dutch fashion, a cloth jerkin wrapped around the waist and a pair of breeches. See, again, the Words are painting a picture that you can see. He bore on his shoulder a stout keg that seemed to be full of some drink, and he made signs for Rip to approach and assist him with the load. Now this man, this is the description you can see. So if I ask you, how was the strange man, what was the appearance of the strange man? You can describe it from the lesson, right? It's accurately described here. Yes, so you, when you are reading a lesson, make a note of these things, that the character sketches about nature and appearances. Yes. Now the two, as he made sign for Rip to take the load from him, Rip did that, and the two labored up in silence up the wild mountain, mutually relieving one another of the load while they walked. And when they came to a hollow surrounded by the mountains, there Rip saw some odd-looking people dressed in quaint, outlandish fashion. Outlandish means, strange and odd. Yes, the first fashion was completely, strange and odd according to, see, any fashion, if we go to Stone Age dressed in jeans, it will look strange and outlandish for them, the people living there. So every age's fashion is suitable in that age. Anywhere else you go, the people will find it outlandish. Yes. And they were playing ninepence. This is a very important detail. They were playing the ninepence. And all of them had beards of various shapes and colors. Rip's companion now emptied the contents of the keg into a large flagons, containers used for storing liquids. And Rip was tempted to taste a draught. When he had drunk as much as he wanted to, he fell into a deep sleep. And what happened next? Let's find out. So on waking up, he found himself on the green knoll where he had first seen the old man of the glen. And when he rubbed his eyes, it was bright and sunny morning, and the birds were happily twittering among the bushes. Rip thought, maybe I slept all night. And he recalled the occurrences, what had happened before he fell asleep. When he rose to walk, he found that his joints had become stiff, and he wanted to, usually, however he moved, he wanted to move, but he was not able to. He got down into the glen with difficulty and found the gully up which he and his companion Wolf, his dog, had ascended the previous evening. But to his astonishment, a mountain stream was flowing down it. So he was surprised, and his dog too was nowhere to be found, and his beard surprisingly and strangely had grown a foot long. Rip entered the outskirts of his village, which was strangely altered. He couldn't recognize his village. It was completely different from what he remembered, and it was larger and more populous, and the familiar haunts, the familiar landmarks had disappeared, and were rows of houses that he had never seen. What happened next? We will find out in the next video. Till then, take care.